Senator Warren.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate your giving me this extra time so I can have a second round of questions. It's very generous. I want to respond first to a comment made by my colleague from North Carolina. Governor Bowman, this is just a yes or no question. At the onset of COVID, when markets were volatile, like we saw them last week, did Vice Chair Quarles initiate an emergency stress test or a so-called scenario analysis to understand whether or not the banks would be resilient to that shock?
Senator Warren, that was just
yes or no.
That was a very unique time in our.
It's a yes or no. Did he?
Yes, he did.
Thank you. You know, I don't want to get in this tangle again, but people reasonably can ask why you are not willing to do this now and whether you're just worried about embarrassing President Trump, because this shock is one, unlike a virus, that is self-inflicted by the President of the United States. So I have a question for Mr. Fogel. Who would be responsible? He would be responsible for opening markets abroad for U.S. businesses. The President has made that job harder with the chaos of his on-again, off-again, on-again, off-again tariffs. The chairman of the Federal Reserve has said that costs are likely to rise, that unemployment is likely to go up. Some businesses are already handing out pink slips. Retirement accounts have taken a hit. Economists say if we continue down this road, a recession is inevitable. Mr. Fogel, do you agree that each of those outcomes is bad for American businesses?
Senator, first of all, I'm not an economist, and it's hard for me to.
Does that make it hard to know whether or not costs going up for families is a problem?
Well, but respectfully, I think he has been clear about his policies, and I think they're.
So the costs that have been identified by the chairman of the Federal Reserve, by economists, by things we can see with our own eyes, do you think those things are good things or bad things?
Again, Senator, I'm optimistic about the results.
Yeah, I know.
Policies.
In the world you all live in, optimism seems to be the whole reality here. Let me just ask one other question, and that is a question about housing. This is one specific area where President Trump's red light, green light tariff chaos is really going to hit families. We currently have a housing shortage of about 5 million homes. This has raised housing costs and pushed homeownership out of reach for way too many families. President Trump's tariff war is making the problem even worse. For example, about 7% of goods that go into building a new home in the United States are imported, with China being the largest supplier of building materials by far. Things like appliances, lighting fixtures, power tools that construction workers use. Mr. Hughes, as you may know, President Trump just raised the tariffs on the goods we import from China to 145%. Do you think this is going to make it more expensive for home builders to build new homes?
Thank you for the question, Senator, and thank you for having me to your office yesterday. I really enjoyed our time. To answer your question, I'm not an economist, but I do believe in the president's vision and strategy for our country, and I think over time it's gonna be great.
Okay, that's not my question. If those costs go up, will it raise the price of housing for new home construction?
I think, Senator, to look at the whole issue, we've had millions of people come into this country over the last 4 years, about 10 million. We've had
I take
increase
it you're
in
not going to answer
regulations.
this question. This is a whole panel of people who want to do the dodge and weave. Well, let me give you an answer to this one. Last night, the CEO of the National Association of Homebuilders said, quote, "We're anticipating higher material prices, which are either going to be absorbed by the builder or more likely they're going to be passed along to the consumer in the form of higher prices in the cost of that home. How much more will families have to pay for a new mid-sized home thanks to President Trump's tariffs? According to the National Association of Homebuilders last night, between $7,500 and $10,000. Let me just say that again. President Trump's tariffs are raising the cost of a new home by $7,500 to $10,000, and that may just be the lower bound because President Trump's tariffs are also putting pressure on interest rate, which will make it more expensive to build and more expensive to get a mortgage. President Trump is making it personally impossible for more Americans to own a home. We're not going to have a chance to lower costs if Trump keeps up this tariff chaos. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the extra time.